Okay, so before we jump into the not so micro lecture, we're just looking at the week 5 and 5-6 literature review assignment requirements. So this is the week 5 module here, and for the literature review. So in weeks 1, 2, and 3, you worked through the literature review process. So you started by collecting articles and kind of going through a direction that you were going to go in. I'm just going to open a PowerPoint and see if I have, nope, don't. So bear with me for a second here. The literature review process, I have this in here somewhere. Here we go. So that we can all see what we're talking about as we go. So we identified a problem or a question. This was done for you the first time. In this second time, you're determining this. Then you were searching the literature, which is where we had Lisa Spicola come in week 1. So once you identify a topic or a direction you want to go in, now you're going to be searching for articles about that topic. Then the way we did it, you prepared your annotated bibliography. You have to figure out what works for you. This is a good method, and this may work for you right now. You may say, look, I'm going to go right into writing or right into outlining or right into wherever, because that's what works for me. Or I'm going to do the annotated bibliography, but I'm going to skip the outline. Okay. Whatever part of this works for you is fine. But essentially in weeks 5 and 6, you're walking through the identification, search the literature, get from, figuring out which articles work for what you want to put together, somehow either do the annotated bibliography or outline and into the written product. You're not doing a draft and final this time. It is one product, but essentially that is what you did in week 3. You wrote the first draft, and then if we didn't have a revision, that would have been the final. So you're walking through basically what you did in weeks 1, 2, and 3. You're doing that in weeks 5 and 6 for the literature review. So let me go back to the actual assignment piece here. And you can see, so the research questions. So I've given you these questions here. You can tweak these if you prefer to come up with them on your own. I'm okay with that. As long as you're staying in kind of the OB or even OD realm, that's fine. But either way, sometimes people have a hard time coming up with the direction on their own, or sometimes people have a hard time funneling into the one that I've given you. So either way is fine with me. And then again, you're going to review articles, figure out what makes sense, and pull this into a written final product, keeping in mind all the feedback I've given you in weeks 1 through 4 about in-text citations, reference list citations, making sure that you are synthesizing the information together so that in one section you have, let's say, 2 paragraphs, and each paragraph has an integration of sources and synthesis of information. It's okay if you have the same source for a few sentences in a row, that's okay. Make sure you're using connective language, make sure you're using a mix of narrative and parenthetical citations, but most importantly, you want to really practice the synthesizing skills. So Voot, this initially was your question. Does this answer it? Does this help? Do you have other questions?
So for the research questions, there are 3 ones that you stated in the assignment, and then you said you may choose up to 1, 2, or all 3.
Yep.
If you choose all 3, it's like we choose like couple, like 2 pages, for one question, 2 pages for another question, or you want like all 4 to 6 pages based on like one or question, research question.
No. The total assignment that you're submitting is 4 to 6 pages. That's whether you do 1, 2, or 3 questions. 3 questions is a lot. That's difficult to do in this amount of space. Some people, again, this is the 3rd class, so everybody's in a different place of writing. So for some people, they can take 1 question and write 30 pages. For some people, it's a struggle, so having 3 is helpful. And like I just said, also, some people are like, I don't want to do those questions. I've got something else. Again, as long as it's OB related, I'm okay with that.
Got it. Thank you.
Yes, no problem. Anybody else who's on tonight have further questions about this or ways we can clarify it? JR?
uh, so which means from the research questions, we need to do one. Pick one and do and respond to one. Only one, not three.
Yep, you can do 1, 2, or 3, whatever works for you.
One,
Yep,
thank you. Yes.
okay, good. Gail?
No, I think I'm all set. I started to do my search looking for all three, but it was very hard to find
Yes.
it that way. So I think I'm gonna use two more so to say, all right, this is something around job satisfaction. This is how they would measure it. But I found 8 articles. Now I just need to read them all and narrow it down.
Okay.
And then I guess when we talk about week 6 and we've got a person, the person that I have, I don't think I've ever met, and seems like she's joined our session in the middle. Like she wasn't part of our first 2 classes. But in the connection, because I know we were like, oh, how do we email this person? But we're really not. We're keeping everything in that week 6 group folder, right?
Yes, so in week 6, yeah, I just put your teams or groups in here, I think yesterday. Yeah, so in here, well, not in here, you're gonna follow these directions here, but yeah, then you go into your groups. Right. So it's users and groups, but then groups. And when you go in, you'll probably only see one of these. So I'm just going to open up group 1, and this happens to be Keisha and Alana. And so when you're in here, you're going to put your document right into this. But here we go. I'm like, it's not going. Yep. So you'll be able to upload your document here. And in week 6, you're only uploading. You're not having to upload and do anything with it. You're just getting it uploaded because you have until Sunday night to finish the assignment. So you wouldn't be able to load it in before you're done. So therefore, then when you're done, you're going to go load that in. And then in week 7, that's where you will do your peer reviews. So it does not matter if you know the person or not. I don't know for your cohort, some people might have transfer credit. There might be reasons, or somebody might be sitting in your cohort who really is in a different cohort, but they just needed this class at this time, whatever. So it doesn't matter if you know them or not. It's really just to get another set of eyes on your. So.
Yeah. Professor, can you go back to week 5?
Mhm.
And then the assignment for the literature review, it seems like this is a new one, or this is a continuity of the one that we gave last week.
Which one are we talking about?
This one.
This one here?
Yes. Yes.
No, it goes in week 5 and 6. It's
But
not
new,
anything
it has
from
nothing to do with the one that we did last week.
No, totally
Oh.
new. Because remember, week 4 was the ending of the process, right? Where you'd gone all around the circle and
Yes.
you the final feedback to do this. Now you're going to go around the circle again, except we're kind of skipping the draft submission. You can write a draft, but we're skipping the draft submission. We're just going right around and you're going here. I am not collecting anything except the final product. So again, if you say, annotated bibliography just doesn't work for me, I'd rather get my stuff in, outline it, and start writing. That's okay. I'm not looking, you're not giving them to me. I'm not looking for them. They're not graded, anything. You're just getting yourself through the process to the final product. What we did in weeks 1 through 4 was give you the tools to walk through the process, but you can get to the end result any way that works for you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I'm going to jump into this week's Not So Micro lecture content here, just so we can move along for the recording here. All right, so I don't know where my words are. There we go. They're coming up. There they are. So we're going to talk about POV, which is point of view, and avoiding anthropomorphism. So anybody want to tell me who's on anthropomorphism? What is it?
Anthropomorphism, it's when you use human
Characteristics or qualities.
characteristic, and then you put it in the animal, for instance.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
And you know, it's interesting. I have a 9-year-old, and so she's learning all of these terms that we all learned in elementary school. And nowhere does anybody learn anthropomorphism. And then all of a sudden you get into grad school and they're like, here you go, this term that we used to call something else, now we're going to call it this. I don't know why. And again, I don't make the rules. I just deliver them. So
in this case, why do the personify organization?
say that again.
Why do they personify
Oh,
organization?
personify organizations. Okay. All right.
It's not a kind of anthropomorphism?
It is. Ask me that question in a minute if I forget to go over it. Yep, that one I love. All right, hang on. We're gonna get there. All right, so the point of view first. I was trying to come up with my own infographic, and I thought, you know what, it's maybe made for third graders, who knows? But it really is the exact point that we need, right? So first person, this is, if you're thinking about a story, a book, or a movie that you might be watching and how the stories are told, right? So if it's in first person, the character is telling you the story as they're going through it. So it's I, me, my, you know, all of these pronouns here. In second person, the narrator is reading to you, right? So, or telling the story to you. So it's all about you and, you know, where, you know, how this connects to you, basically talking directly to you. And then in third person, so the narrator talks about other people. This is the narrator telling the story kind of from outside the story, as opposed to it being the character inside the story, right? So he, she, it, they, there, whatever. You may be wondering, why are we talking about characters and stories? We are not writing these fictitious literature novels here. So the reason for this is we see so often about what we're going to move into, the anthropomorphism, but talking about in my study, or the study shows, or this author believes, the author found, whatever. There's a lot of that kind of language in dissertations, right? So in terms of the point of view, this is not an APA rule. APA does permit first person. However, at Johnson & Wales in our doctoral programs, we've adopted third person. This is how a lot of academic writing is produced in third person, but it's not an absolute rule. Also keep in mind, any rules that we do abide by, whether they are APA or DBA local rules, which this I would say is a local rule, third person as a must. That's not like the end all be all, right? Because you may decide after you finish your degree, you want to submit an article to a journal, and not every journal uses APA. They use AP, they use Chicago, there's other styles, some use MLA, there's other styles out there. So just know sometimes your work has to be adapted from a format or perspective standpoint. So understanding anthropomorphism. So this is again in academic context, because that's where we are and what we're talking about. So definition, exactly what JR said, you know, you're giving human traits, characteristics, emotions, whatever, to non-human entities, and specifically we're in academic writing. So the importance, ensuring precision, objectivity, and clarity in doctoral work. This is why this is important to us. We're going to talk about it tonight. And when you write your dissertation, I can almost guarantee many of you, at least, are going to have notes from your committee saying anthropomorphism, because it's tricky. So, examples of anthropomorphism, you can see the correct versions are, I'm sorry, let me start with the incorrect. The incorrect, the study argues and the data suggests, but the more correct versions would be the study's findings indicate or the data analysis reveals. Sometimes it's very difficult to tell the right and the wrong because, okay, it can reveal, but it can't suggest. Or the analysis can reveal, but the data can't suggest. So where's the rule there? Like, well, how does this even make sense? I will tell you, it is gray. And this is an area that I often have to like rethink or reword because I'm like, I don't know. Can the study do that or the study can't do that? I don't know. Can it? And why can the findings, but not the study? So again, I'm delivering this to you. It's not always cut and dry. All right, so effects of anthropomorphism. As I mentioned on the first slide, you want to have a sense of clarity throughout all of your work. That's really important in dissertation writing, in any of the assignments you're writing, and then in article writing, right? So through anthropomorphism, you do lose some clarity and objectivity in this. Misrepresentation, it depends on how you're using it. Obviously, any of this depends on how you're using it, but the experiment decided. Well, experiments don't decide anything. The people conducting the experiments are the ones making decisions, right? The experiments results show. Okay, that's better. That's good. So this website from the University of Arizona has some great examples. I had it open already. Let me go to where I have it open because I guess they closed. I had all of these open so we could see them. They do a nice job of giving you examples. See, I'm speaking in second person, but giving you examples because of that grayness. So I think these are worth just saying out loud just so we can kind of hear them and see them. But the article from Lassiter and Jones discussed how coffee wakes you up in the morning. The better way to say this is Lassiter and Jones discussed how coffee wakes you up in the morning, because it's the authors that discussed this, not the article, or the article from Lassiter and Jones includes information about this. So you can see the difference, but again, sometimes when you're writing, it's hard to say, okay, wait, is there a big difference from number 1 and number 3? I'm not going to go through all of these reasons here. You can read those, but I do like the examples. So the experiment attempted to investigate how students learn APA style. So Wheatley, 2016, attempted to investigate how students learn APA style because Wheatley is the researcher or the primary investigator. This experiment was an attempt to investigate how students learn APA style. So this is a good website to keep on hand so that when you're writing, and I'm not telling you to go crazy right now and every time like, oh, is that okay? Is that okay? But especially if you get feedback from your faculty members that say, oh, anthropomorphism, or watch for that you can go and say, okay, wait, I worded it similarly to this example. What would a better option be? And then this one, a review of the literature concluded that there is a gap in the research on this topic. This is something I see very often, obviously, in what we're talking about in this class, literature reviews. So better options, I concluded that there is a gap in the research on this topic, except we know that we're not using I in this class. We're going to use third person. A review of the literature indicates that there is a gap in the research on this topic. To me, that would be the better option. All right. And then they give you some of the acceptable examples of the how to not, or how to avoid anthropomorphism. I will say the study found is typically not one that we would permit, right? That's kind of on the line of anthropomorphism. I am not an expert on this, so again, I do have trouble sometimes with the grayness of what's okay, but I do know that the study found is not typically something that we would have our students use in their wording. Everything else works out pretty well, and then they give you some little pointers of how to avoid it simply. So that is really, let's see if we can get ourselves back to.
It
Back to
sounds like, though, that even when you're going through those examples, that when it's really wordy, you probably need to go back and relook at it, because
Yeah,
it seemed like the correct format was really short and succinct, where the other one, the I can never say the word, the anthropomorphism, whatever, that one sounded very wordy and it sounded very redundant. So I don't know, that was just my take, especially when you read it out loud. It says something different, you can see, you can sense that it's a little wordy and maybe you need to go back and look at it.
Yep, that is true, that can be. But even sometimes as simple as the study found, because in this case, I would tell you to replace that with the authors, the researchers, whatever found. I am just going to look up quickly. I didn't pull this up. Let's do APA style guide. APA, in my opinion, is not very clear on this. Again, they give you these examples, but I don't find them particularly helpful. These are the same. This is like exactly the same information on the page in the manual if you have the hard copy. So they say the incorrect usage, rat couples lived in the same enclosure, but it's because rats are not human, they're not couples, they're pairs. So it's better to say pairs. Okay, that's fine. That type of sentence doesn't apply to most of the research we are doing in this program. Then the theory addresses versus the theory concludes. Again, why can it address and not conclude? I understand the difference there, and you probably do as well. It's overall, it's addressing this topic, this whatever, versus concluding. But at the end of the day, there's two verbs there. So why is one right and one wrong? And I find that sometimes is very difficult to figure out. So don't drive yourself crazy on this, but do start to keep it in mind that as you're developing your writing styles and bringing in more literature to support what you're writing, that you're just aware of this. All right. If anyone watching the recording has any questions, please feel free to reach out.